The crash was the kind of thing you see in a movie and think, that's too dramatic to be real. It wasn't. It happened late, a rainy Tuesday, long after most people had gone home. I was coming back from work, taking the same left turn I always did. Someone ran a red light. That's the last thing I remember. I woke up 3 days later in a hospital bed. My ribs were broken. My spine fractured. My dominant hand was in a brace, and the nurse told me I might not walk properly for months. Maybe longer. I didn't panic. I didn't cry. I just blinked at the ceiling and asked her the only question that mattered. Has anyone come? She hesitated. We've tried reaching out. No one's visited yet. That was when the real pain started. I come from a family that prides itself on being tight-knit. We don't scream or fight in public. We send cards. We pose for photos. We call on birthdays sometimes. But beneath all that, it's cold. If you're thriving, they cheer. If you fall apart, they vanish. When I was younger, I didn't notice it. I thought everyone's family worked that way, love handed out in proportion to your usefulness. But lying in that hospital bed, unable to feel my legs, watching the door stay shut for days, I stopped making excuses for them. No one showed up. Not my mom. Not my sister. Not my brother. Not even a text message from my dad. Just nothing. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe they thought it wasn't serious. Maybe they were waiting for the right time. Maybe they were trying to give me space. But by day 6, when a coworker dropped off my laptop charger and said, "I can't believe none of your family's been by," I felt it settle in my chest. They knew. And they chose not to come. My hospital stay lasted just over a month. I had no income. No usable savings. No one to bring me clothes. No one to help with insurance calls or medical paperwork. I handled everything from a hospital bed, with one working arm and no help. I texted my sister once, just her. "Hey. Just wanted you to know I was in a bad accident. It's been a rough month." The message was delivered. No reply. The day I was discharged, the nurse wheeled me outside. I had no ride home. No family waiting. Just an Uber driver who asked, "You sure nobody's coming to get you?" I nodded. Because by then I was sure. The rehab facility they sent me to was a converted office building, cheap floors, peeling paint, stale food. Still, I was grateful for the roof. Until I saw the $3,000 copay. I called my mom. Not to beg. Just to ask. "Is there any way you could help cover part of the rehab bill? Even a loan?" Her voice was flat. "We're not in a position to do that." "Okay. I understand." She didn't ask how I was doing. Didn't ask what the accident had done to me. Didn't ask anything at all. Just silence. Then, "Let us know when you're back on your feet." That sentence lived in my head for weeks. Back on your feet. Like, this wasn't life-altering. Like it was just an inconvenience they could ignore until it stopped making them uncomfortable. I sat alone on Thanksgiving. Alone on Christmas. I watched them post family pictures, the tree, the food, the matching sweaters. There was a seat at the table where I used to sit. Now, it was filled by a neighbor. A cousin. A friend of a friend. Anyone but me. And it hit me. I hadn't been forgotten. I'd been replaced. Rock bottom is quieter than people think. No dramatic montage. No motivational playlist. Just long days that bleed into each other, and the slow realization that nobody is coming. That's where I was. No money. No job. No functioning legs. And no family offering so much as a ride to therapy. So I did what I've always done, I figured it out. The rehab facility had a community laptop room, old machines, slow Wi-Fi, everything slightly sticky. I wheeled myself in every morning and started applying for anything I could do remotely. Data entry. Basic customer support. Email management. Anything that didn't require standing up or pretending I was okay. Eventually, I got hired by a small e-commerce company, entry-level support. $10 an hour. No benefits. But it was something. I worked from a loaner laptop. My rehab roommate let me tether off his phone data when the Wi-Fi crashed. We were two strangers in a beige-walled purgatory, sharing painkillers and quiet victories. Progress was slow. Learning to walk again meant pain. Real, scream into a pillow pain. But I kept showing up. To PT. To work. To life. Because no one else was going to. My parents didn't check in. Neither did my siblings. But I saw them, online, in photos, living normally. Weddings. Vacations. Baby showers. I'd scroll, not out of jealousy, but disbelief. How do you look that happy while pretending someone in your family doesn't exist? 2 months into recovery, I stopped hoping for a call. At 3 months, I deleted our family group chat. At 4, I got my first promotion, support team lead. Small pay bump. Big validation. My PT clapped for me when I told her. She was the first person to say she was proud. By month 6, I could walk across the room, no cane. I filmed it. Sent it to a couple of close friends. Not my family. Because if you don't show up for the war, you don't get to celebrate the victory. Then one night I got a letter. From my dad. No return address. Just a card with embossed gold lettering. Glad to see you're doing better. Hope we can reconnect soon. No apology. No acknowledgement. No mention of the silence. Just the tone of someone who assumes they're still welcome. I didn't reply. I didn't rip it up either. I slid it into the back of a drawer, next to hospital bills, outdated prescriptions, and a discharge report stamped with the phrase, "No family support available." That same week, my boss asked if I'd consider a full-time offer, benefits, remote flexibility, long-term role. I accepted. Then I moved into my apartment, nothing fancy. But it was mine. I paid that rent with my own money. Cooked my food. Took my first unaided shower in 9 months. I stood there, water running down my face, and whispered to myself, "You did it." Without them. They could have been part of that. The rebuild. The comeback. The version of me that rose from everything they abandoned. But they weren't there. And I was done leaving a seat open for people who refused to show up. By the 1-year mark, I was working full-time, paying my bills, walking without support, and waking up without pain. The rehab days felt like a different lifetime. So did the silence. I wasn't bitter anymore. I wasn't even angry. I just evolved. It's strange what happens when you stop hoping people will change. You start changing instead. I built routines. A weekend ritual at the local diner. Monthly donations to the rehab center. A side project helping disabled clients navigate digital workplaces. I started living like someone who wasn't waiting to be loved better. Then, out of nowhere, my sister called. I saw her name on the screen and froze. It had been over a year. I answered, mostly out of curiosity. "Hey," she said, like we'd spoken last week. "Hey. You look good. You haven't seen me. Instagram. Your company tagged you." Ah. That made sense. The small talk didn't last. By minute 3, she got to the point. "Callie's in a bind. She's trying to finish her grad program, but she's short on tuition. Mom said maybe you could help." I blinked. "You want money? It's just a few thousand. You're doing well now, right? Did you know I couldn't walk for 3 months?" Silence. "Did you know I applied for disability and got denied twice?" Still nothing. "Did you know I lived off protein shakes and crackers while you were posting resort selfies? I didn't know how bad it was." "You didn't ask." She sighed. Tried to pivot. "I just thought maybe we could start fresh. Be a family again." Family shows up. You all disappeared. We didn't mean to. Things were complicated. Things were complicated for me, too. I just didn't have the luxury of disappearing. I didn't yell. Didn't guilt trip. Just told her the truth. And she didn't argue. Because deep down, they all knew. They knew they left me to drown. 2 days later, my mom texted. "We heard about your conversation with your sister. Sorry if things got tense. We're all just trying our best." No. We were wrong. No. How are you? Just image control. That week, I got a handwritten letter from my dad. Same neat script as always. It started with, "You've always been the independent one," and ended with, "Don't forget, we're still your family." Funny how that line always shows up when they want something. I didn't respond to any of them. Because nothing had changed. They weren't reaching out to reconnect. They were reaching out because I was finally useful again. And I don't offer myself to people who only value me when I'm thriving. The irony? If they just apologized, genuinely, I might have met them halfway. But instead, they made my survival about them. I kept working. Got another raise. Spoke at a conference. Mentored 2 new hires who reminded me of myself, quiet, driven, overlooked. One of them asked why I always had time to help. I said, because no one did that for me. And I remember exactly how it felt. You can't rewrite the past. But you can build a future that makes the past irrelevant. And that's what I was doing. Without them. It took me a year and a half to rebuild my life. But it only took one text to bring the past flooding back. Can we meet? Just talk. Please. Mom. No context. No apology. Just that. I stared at it for a while, then typed a single word. When? We met at a neutral spot, a cafe downtown. I got there early. She was already sitting, like she didn't want to risk me changing my mind. My father showed up 5 minutes later, trying too hard to act casual. Same tucked-in polo. Same look of restrained discomfort. No one hugged. No one smiled. I sat down and waited for someone to speak. My mom started. We didn't realize how bad it was. I nodded. Let her talk. When we heard about the crash, we didn't know if we should come. Why not? We didn't want to be in the way. You didn't want to be responsible. My dad cut in. That's not fair. You're right, I said. Fair would have been calling. Showing up. They helped me find a ride home when I was discharged. Fair would have been asking how I was before asking me to pay for Callie's tuition. That landed like a brick. They both sat still, silent. I didn't raise my voice. Didn't cry. I just laid it out. I begged for help with a hospital bill. You said no. I spent months in a rehab center alone. You didn't call. My birthday came and went. Nothing. And then, when I get stable? Suddenly you miss me. My mom's eyes welled up. We made mistakes. You made choices. I wasn't trying to shame them. I was trying to say everything I used to swallow. To say it while I still had the strength, and the clarity, to never walk it back. My dad tried again. We've always thought of you as the strong one. Being strong doesn't mean I didn't need you. You didn't ask for help. I shouldn't have had to. The conversation didn't explode. It just unraveled. Excuses, deflections, awkward silences. Eventually, my mom whispered, "We thought you'd bounce back. Like always." And there it was. Their defense in one sentence. They didn't check in because they assumed I would survive. And when I did, they decided that meant they'd been right to walk away. We sat in that cafe for over an hour. They said sorry, but it wasn't for what mattered. They said they missed me, but only after I became visible again. They said they wanted to move forward, but not once did they ask what I needed. When I stood up to leave, I said, "I'm not angry anymore. But I'm not pretending anymore either." "So what now?" my dad asked. "Now? Nothing. You had a chance to be part of the rebuild. You declined. I'm not holding the door open just because you've changed your mind." And I walked out. Not furious. Not broken. Just done. They texted a few times after that. I didn't reply. Because I didn't need to yell. I'd already spoken. It started with a blog post. I didn't write it for attention. I wrote it because I needed to let it out, somewhere that didn't demand a reply or offer cheap advice. It was called "The Year My Family Disappeared." I didn't name names. Didn't call out siblings or post receipts. Just told the truth. The crash. The silence. The rebuild. The part where they came back, not with an apology, but with an ask. I posted it at 11 p.m. on a Friday. By morning, it had over 2,000 views. By the next week, it had been shared on a few small platforms. People messaged me saying things like, "I thought it was just me. I've been the strong one too. Thank you for saying it." It wasn't viral. But it was real. Then, someone from a podcast reached out. They focused on stories of resilience, people who'd rebuilt after loss, illness, abandonment. They asked if I wanted to tell mine on air. I said yes. We recorded a week later. It wasn't dramatic. Just me, in a quiet studio, saying what I used to whisper to no one. Surviving something alone doesn't make you ungrateful. It makes you unprotected. Family isn't blood. It's who shows up when it's hard, not just when it looks good in pictures. I spoke for 45 minutes. And when the episode aired, everything changed. My inbox filled up. Some were strangers thanking me. Some were friends who hadn't known the full story. And one was from my cousin, Nina, someone I hadn't spoken to since before the accident. I listened to your interview. I didn't know how bad it was. I'm sorry I stayed quiet. That meant more than she knew. But it also reached the people I hadn't written it for. My mom emailed. You really think telling the world our business was necessary? My dad's message was even shorter. You made us look like monsters. I didn't reply to either. Because I hadn't made them look like anything. They did that. I just stopped hiding it. And then Callie wrote me. Not a guilt trip. Not a request. A real message. I listened. I cried. I wish I'd called you. I didn't know how to be there, so I did nothing. That was wrong. She didn't ask to reconnect. She didn't excuse it. She just owned it. I responded. Thank you. That's more than anyone else has said. She replied. I'm not asking to fix things. I just wanted you to know I see it now. And honestly, that was enough. Sometimes, closure isn't a reunion. It's a reckoning. After that, I stopped needing to explain myself to anyone. People could think what they wanted. Because I knew what happened. I had lived it. Survived it. Spoken it. And I wasn't ashamed of it anymore. One person said I was brave. I said, it's not bravery. It's boundaries. Time passed. Quietly. Peacefully. The way healing often does when no one's watching. I stayed in my lane. Worked. Traveled. Read books in silence. My apartment grew warmer, not from new furniture or better lighting, but because the air inside wasn't waiting for someone else's voice. The podcast buzz faded, and life settled. And I was content. Really content. Not the pretend kind. Not the smile for others kind. The kind you earn. The kind you build, brick by slow, hard brick, after everyone tells you they're too busy to help lay the foundation. Then came the letter. Handwritten. Different envelope. Different tone. This one wasn't from my parents. It was from my aunt, my mom's sister. Someone who'd stayed quiet through the whole thing, but never cruel. Never condescending. She invited me to a family event. My parents would be there. So would my siblings. It was a milestone birthday for one of the cousins, big party, rented venue, full guest list. You should come, she wrote. I think it's time. Time for what? Closure? Performance? Forgiveness? I stared at the card for a long time. I didn't reply. But I thought about it. Not because I missed them. Not because I wanted to see them. Because I wanted to see if I could walk into that room and not feel like a scar. 3 days before the event, I RSVP'd yes. Not to prove anything. Just to confirm something to myself. That I could show up, be seen, and not shrink. The night of the party, I wore a simple black suit. No tie. Just enough to look sharp, not enough to look like I cared too much. When I walked in, heads turned. Some smiled. Others blinked like they were seeing a ghost. I wasn't dramatic. Didn't cause a scene. Didn't avoid anyone either. Just made my way to the bar, ordered something non-alcoholic, and stood still. My mom saw me first. She didn't come over. Just watched. Then my dad nodded once. Like that counted for something. Eventually, Callie approached. Didn't think you'd come. Neither did I. She laughed, not nervously. Just real. Soft. I'm glad you did. We stood there for a while. Didn't dig up the past. Didn't try to act like we were fine. Just coexisted. And that was enough. At some point, I spoke to my aunt, thanked her for the invite. She leaned in and whispered. You look strong. I smiled. Because I was. I left before dessert. No speeches. No hugs. No awkward family photos. Just a quiet exit, one I made entirely on my terms. And as I stepped outside, I felt something strange. Not pride. Not closure. Just peace. The kind that comes when you stop trying to rewrite history and start writing your future without asking for approval. They saw me. And more importantly, I saw myself. And I liked who I saw. There's a moment, long after the storm has passed, when you realize the silence around you isn't emptiness. It's peace. Not the peace that comes from getting an apology. Not the peace that comes from reconciliation. The kind you earn by surviving without what you thought you needed. That's where I live now. My home is small. Bright. Uncomplicated. The kind of place where every item inside was placed there by me, not inherited, not borrowed, not resented. Mine. People still ask sometimes. Do you talk to your family now? I don't give them the story. Not unless they've earned it. I just say, we're on different paths. And leave it there. Because sometimes the truth is too deep for small talk. Callie and I text here and there. Short exchanges. No guilt. No pretending. We exist on neutral ground now. And that's okay. I don't need a dramatic reunion. I just need honesty. My parents haven't reached out since the party. And I haven't offered a hand. Not out of malice. Out of clarity. Because you don't chase people who let you drown. Sometimes I still think about the hospital bed. The long days. The sound of the hallway door that never opened. It doesn't haunt me anymore. But I revisit it now and then, not to hurt, but to remember. That version of me, fragile, stitched up, alone, deserved better. And the man I am now? He made sure that kid got what he was owed. Not from them. From himself. I speak sometimes. Conferences. Recovery groups. A few guest lectures at local colleges. People ask how I kept going. And I always say the same thing. Because I didn't have the luxury of quitting. Because I decided that if no one was coming to save me, I'd build the ladder myself. And I did. There's a scar across my spine that still aches when it rains. But I wear it proudly. Proof of pain, healing, and survival. I don't hide it. I don't need to. They once said I was too independent. What they meant was, you didn't need us, and that made us uncomfortable. But needing someone and being abandoned by them are two different things. And I will never mistake one for the other again. These days I set my table. Not a metaphor. A real one. Sometimes it's just me. Sometimes a friend. Sometimes a stranger who becomes something more. But everyone at that table? They earn their seat. Not through blood. Through care. And when someone asks where my family is, I don't flinch. I just say, I had one. Then I made a better one. Because I did. And it's built on something stronger than tradition or last names or staged holiday photos. It's built on presence. Consistency. And love that doesn't vanish when things get hard. So no, I'm not bitter. I'm not even sad. I'm free. And I've never sat more comfortably in my own skin than I do now.